Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We continue on the matters of the politics of the prohibition of riba, and I remind you again of what our foundational statement was. This is the most important political issue facing every society in the world today. It's so important that it cannot be avoided. It is not acceptable to say, but we have other issues while this thing is not being tackled, understood, and dealt with. For the same reason that I was saying on the first day, when your house is in fire, you do not start painting the windows. It is not acceptable to say, yes, but the windows need paint. It's just not applicable. It's not just simply a mistake. It's an assassination. It's a suicidal tactic. Like when you're attacked with a mosquito, by a mosquito, and by a tiger at the same time, to defend yourself against a mosquito is suicidal. It's that same principle. Not to speak about riba is suicidal. In the case of our ulama today is distracting tactics, and tacitly is an endorsement of the present system of riba. There is no excuse on the matter. Nobody can just ignore the matter. It cannot be put under the carpet. It is our obligation to put it into the front line. From the definition of riba, which I hope you, at the end of the day, this is something you have to memorize. Any unjustified increment between the value of the goods given and the value of the goods received. Any unjustified increment between the value of the goods given and the value of the goods received. This is riba. It unfolds into riba al-nasya, riba al-fadl, the consequences, how this thing allows us to understand how the things have evolved. Now, our topic now is central banking, and what is our policies regarding central banking, what do we understand, what needs to be done, etc., etc. So the first thing is to understand a little bit about central banking. Well, needless to say, central banking was not born with Adam and Eve. Some people believe so. No, it is a convention created by banksters in England. Is the first central bank, not chronologically, but is the most important first central bank that it created the tone and it transformed the world. So there is something here that is important to understand, and this will be the basis of how we build this argumentation, is that riba has changed. Now, in order to understand this, my argument is going to be that what we are facing today is a new type of riba. Riba still, but a new type of riba, as if it were a riba on hormones or a super riba. And we have evidences to notice this. Something changed. Something changed with the creation of a new institution called the bank. Something altered that is not what it was before, and what came after is totally different. Riba was enhanced. It was on steroids. It's a different type of riba. And the reason is that two significant things have changed. Okay, here are the evidences. If you look at the riba that you encounter in the classical literature, what you find is that the interest rates that they're applicable are significantly higher than they are today. We have evidences, for example, more particularly in the late Roman Empire, where the interest rates are recorded to be at the level of 8% a month. Now, if you times that 12 months, that's above 100%. That's high. And what we notice today is that comparatively to these old figures of the old days, I mean, sometimes you find interest rates 100% a month. I give you the money, but you have to give it to me double at the end of the month. It was much, much higher. Clearly, on those circumstances, the idea of abused and abuser is clearly definable. Okay? The person typically is somebody who's desperate. He needs it because, my mother is dying and I need the medicines. You don't have negotiating room. You have to get the money from wherever you can. Or on the event of some catastrophic business ton of events. And you have to get the money from somewhere, it doesn't matter what. And so there's these vultures flowing around, looking for these people and say, here I am, the shark lenders. Sharks, they are just waiting for the prey. So it was very easy for that society to identify the abuser and therefore, consequently, sooner or later, throw them away. So bankers didn't have a good time in religious societies. They could get away for a while, but eventually people raise, and that's it. From the days of the Greeks and Solon and the different reformers that came alongside, and every so often they were wiped out, debts were removed, and they were back to basics again. But something happened. Something changed. Okay, that's the first evidence. The interest rates suddenly, they became much lower. Second thing that we notice is that in the old days, the instrument of lending was gold and silver coins. But suddenly, what we find in this riba on steroids is that the money that is lent, the instrument of lending, is IOUs, paper money. And in analyzing the mathematics behind this, we realize that the banks discover a way of lending money they did not have. Now, this is going to lead us to the mathematics behind this new riba on steroids, or super riba, as I call it. It's different. Different interest rates, different instrument of lending. What happens behind this? More important, how can they get away with this statement of lending money they don't have, or somebody has expressed it of lending money from thin air, creating money from thin air? All right. Without going in extensive detail, but many of you will understand when I say fractional reserve banking. Right? Banks were founded upon the idea that you can lend money you don't have. Simply don't lend the money. Lend the IOU of the money. They discovered from the early days that not everybody who has a deposit with the goldsmith turned into a wadia, what we will call a wadia, and later on became a bank. Not everybody comes and demands the money if you give them an IOU. They definitely don't come all at the same time. So at any given time, the banker has X amount of money in the vault that is doing absolutely nothing. It just takes a little temptation to say, gosh, all this gold doing nothing there, I could lend it to a third party. The gold that is not mine, that belongs to my customers, I can lend it to another party for a short period of time, 1 month, 2 months, and I can still profit from this and nobody will notice. Now, the moment you start lending this gold that belongs to the other person to a third party, that gold is like it has a split into two. Two people can go and claim the same amount of gold. You get it? So, it's as if I had double amount of gold. I can be collecting from him fees of safekeeping and from him interest rates. Now, follow the mathematics of this. If I lend not twice the amount of gold that I have, but 3 times the amount of gold, my profit multiplies proportionally. that rate between the physical gold that I have and the amount of IOUs in circulation, paper money in circulation, reflects proportionally to my profit. The higher the rate, that is 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 10 times. At whatever interest rate, let's say 10%, my profit grows proportionally. So if I lend at 10%, 2 times more, is as if I am charging 20%. Because, follow the maths, 1,000 ringgit, the real ringgit. And I lend it to somebody 1 to 1, 10%. But if I multiply by 2 the amount of IOUs, that is 2,000. At 10%, my profit doubles. As if I have obtained 20% profit. You followed my maths? So 3 times, 30%. 10 times, 100%. You get it? So what is happening here? The banks can lend at the lower interest rates and still obtain the same profit. Now that's awesome. Because they can charge 10%, but they are collecting 100%. You follow? I mean, quite logically, every bank will be under the pressure of saying, well, I can do it. Why not doing it 12 times more? Okay? The amount of people that at this interest rate would like to borrow has increased. To pay 100%, okay, but 10% is affordable. States always wanting money to go into a war. You know, large enterprising, that they can use this money in order to obtain monopoly status. You know, buying a larger factory, or get a larger ship in order to monopolize trade. There is always people interested from a commercial point of view. Here is not people in need now. It's people who want to obtain a benefit out of this. At 100% a year is much less, but at 10% I get more. So you need a very simple accounting to figure out that instead of 10 times more, 20 times more. All right? But there is a limit here, because if you overstretch it, then the people start coming to you, and if you don't have cash for one day, the panic comes. And then everybody runs into the bank. You have a bank run, and suddenly bankrupt. Completely bankrupt. So you have to keep a tiny little thread in understanding how much you can get away with. So competition starts to create a whole new industry, whereby, you know, I need more cash, I need more customers. Okay, why if I give them a little bit of interest? Instead of paying me a fee for holding the gold, I will pay them interest for depositing the money with me. The more gold I have, the more I can lend. So now, certain banks start picking up customers from the others. The others pick it up very quickly. They start also giving interest rates to the people. So a new balance, something that it now starts to look like a bank, it starts emerging naturally from a very simple mathematical process. So this starts to happen. The small houses collapse quickly, but the large houses, every time there is a bank run on a small company, it disappears, my customers come to me. So it's like I still keep moving. Remember that suddenly, to keep money in your house is ridiculous. I can keep it in the bank and I obtain some profit. There's no encouragement of keeping the money with me. I just put it with these people. Okay, they give me an IOU, but so what? Everybody accepts the IOU. All right? Especially from these banks. These are the ones that are a little bit more dodgy. But these ones, these big banks, so there's a consolidation around big firms that they become banks and models for banking for the rest of Europe. It is an unstoppable affair. Unstoppable. What is happening here that is new? And how, for the first time, we see something that we haven't seen before. You know, these abused and abuser characterization of all the classical literature when it refers to usury is blurry. I mean, the people are not being looked like people who are in desperation. These are not the customers of the banks. The customers that they are coming into queue into the bank, they are well dressed and tight, and they have a lot of money. The bank doesn't need to go and find them. They are queuing to be abused. It doesn't make sense. The people are knocking at the door, give me a credit. That doesn't sound like somebody who's been abused. You know, I mean, and to criminalize this activity, they say, how on earth you can say that this is haram when the two parties are willingly doing it? Okay, and this is where the whole Christian ethos of riba is haram starts kind of cracking down. There is a very powerful argumentation saying it's good. Okay, but we have to ask ourselves, how can it possibly be good? It cannot be. There is something here missing in the equation, something that I haven't looked upon. Well, something that it may have been invisible in those days because there was no vocabulary to define it. There was no words to define it, so if you don't have a word, you cannot see it. It's what we say to the kuffar. They don't understand riba, so they don't see it. It doesn't matter. You can look at the banks, etc. If you don't understand riba is haram, you just don't see it. Well, the thing they couldn't see in those days, because there was not a word for it, is what we call now inflation. And look at the beauty of this. In this transaction that it was taking place between the banker and the borrower, there is a win-win situation. And you have to say, who is the loser? Who is the loser? Where is the loser here? The loser is a third party that is totally unawares of what's going on. Are the users of the currency. Not just the IOUs, the gold and the silver. For as it seems, the amount of gold and silver, what we call today money supply, has increased. There was no new mines. The money supply had grown. The gold and the silver had suddenly somehow multiplied. So look at this. The banker wins, the borrower wins. Who is the loser? Everybody else. Beautiful. Beautiful. Passively. The whole evil of this affair is transferred to some third party that doesn't even know what's going on. I mean, they may even be in their little house saying, these bankers are terrible. And yet he's still paying for it. Just like you are right now paying for the loan being given by CIMB to some new constructor who is making the new Sungai Wang somewhere in the outskirts of Kuala Lumpur. You are paying for that loan. It's been deducted from your pockets. You are being taxed. Taxed by a private company called a bank. When bank and the new borrower are shaking hands, the smile covers, the whole room. If it is big enough, it will be announced on television. A new loan has been given for that, and there will be some innocent individual celebrating and saying to himself, this is good for the economy. The same guy that has been robbed at that very second. It's brilliant, isn't it? And this is what is so evil about this thing, is that there's no escape. There's no escape. Once you allowed a private institution to issue the money, everybody is trapped by it. Like, you cannot escape it. And now, this is the magical thing. You say to yourself, I'm a good Muslim, I'm not going to borrow from the bank. It doesn't matter, they are laughing at you, wonderful. You are the perfect slave. That's exactly what you want. You passively sit down there, just keep the money in the pocket, that's all we want from you. They don't need you. These bankers and borrowers and the family of borrowers, they can just sit down and strip the whole society of money while you still don't know what is going on. The only thing you realize is that, gosh, I mean, there's something wrong with this money. I mean, I cannot manage to save. It just keeps falling down into valuelessness. I remember speaking with Tuan Guru, Rahimullah, when he was Chief Minister of Kelantan. He was telling me that here in Kelantan, we don't borrow money. He said it from a point of view of moral standing. I know exactly what he was telling me. He was telling me, I don't want to participate in this moralless interest rate business as in the other states like Johor, Selangor, etc., etc. What he couldn't understand is that they don't care if Kelantan doesn't borrow. The money flows into Kuala Lumpur and it flows into Johor, and it is collected from all the states, including Kelantan, passively suffering inflation without getting none of the credit back. The government, inadvertently, because of the lack of understanding, they were contributing to the download, the bringing down of the people of Kelantan. Now, you cannot say Tuan Guru was a bad man. Anybody who was close to him, you could see this man is doing it out of most altruistic position. He just couldn't see it. And this is the result of the education they have received. This is not in the equation. This has not been understood. It's not in the books of Fiqh of his teachers. It's not under any definition of riba. And therefore, his own confusion. He was with the gold dinar while I was present, and he was defending Islamic banking the day immediately after. Tuan Guru. So he found himself I cannot question his honesty. I can, in fact, only affirm his honesty. But he just couldn't see it. This is important that you understand this thing, because you find yourself in the same predicament. How many times you have said to yourself, I will not borrow from the bank. I'm not going to be one of them. You don't do it because, you don't want anything other but pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What you don't realize is that by holding the ringgit in your pocket, you're already part of it. That's the part that you couldn't understand. Because to understand paper money, you have to go a little bit farther. This is the thing that we want to unveil. Is that the banks have found a system to tax the entire society whether they are willing or unwilling participants in the transaction. The riba has already involved the entire society, whether they like it or not. The money supply created by this new definition of money, credit money, that operates like money, it was already affecting everybody in society. And here is the interesting part. If you do not borrow, you are out of the game. So, the moralistic individual who will say, no, I'm not going to borrow. The state of Johor, don't care. They borrow like madness. Kelantan says, I don't borrow. Johor is like a kind of, Johor is taxing the entire country, and the industry starts growing there. The effect of inflation is already subsidizing these loans. What does it mean, subsidizing the loans? Okay, this is very important to understand. Again, the mathematics of the loan is, I give you this money, and you pay 10% interest rates. But what happens when the inflation is 10%? All right? If, at the end of the year, the value of the money is 10% less than it was in January, let's say December, January, and your interest rate that you have paid is 10%, how much are you paying at the end? The same amount. Inflation cancels the interest rate. You understand that? So from the point of view of the borrower, it's a subsidy. From the point of view of those who do not borrow, it's a tax. There you are. Now you will understand why this little institution will become the most powerful institution in the world, while this tiny little discovery, mathematical trick, is going to turn the whole world upside down. How this little mathematics, this simple mathematics, is going to turn the world round, destroy empires, change politics, geopolitics, and define the world in a manner unthinkable before. Because this new supply of money has a double standard. This inflation doesn't affect everybody the same. There's a distinction between those who hold the cash and those who borrow. For some, wonderful, for them, mathematics, inflation works in their favor. It's clear to us, we can look at the mathematics, it wasn't clear 100 years ago. And I will give you one example. In my early days as a young man, before I was a Muslim, I was an avid reader of anarchist literature. I was particularly in love with Joseph Pierre Proudhon, whom I consider, this is it, this is the real revolutionary. He himself, who was committed to the destruction of capitalism, who hated banks, did not understand paper money. He, like many others, saw in paper money the most just tax, because he said, the person who has more money will pay more. You see? The value of the money is going down. If you have 1 million, you lose more than if you have 20 ringgit, right? So this is the perfect tax. Okay? But what is the thing that he didn't see? Is that is true for the people who hold physical money, but not for the people who borrow money. That exception, the people who borrow money, is the key. Because for them, instead of paying the tax, they are subsidized. So, and who happen to be the people who borrow more? The rich. For the condition of borrowing is that you have to have money. The collateral principle. So here we are. It's a tax on the poor. Inflation is a tax on the poor, on those poor fellows who cannot borrow. And therefore, creating injustice, elevating mathematically injustice to its ultimate consequences, which is the 1% owning 90% of the assets. It can happen enormously quickly, enormously fast. Well, needless to say, Pakistan didn't have a central bank, because Pakistan didn't exist until 1947. The creation of the Central Bank of Pakistan by the so-called Wali of Allah, Ali Jinnah, he created a bank and a paper money with his image, which is most appropriate, and he launched this central bank. The first auditing of banking, external auditing, was done in the 70s. The Central Bank of Pakistan, I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was created in 1953, if I'm right. It took a few years. The program was there, but it took them years to formalize it. I think it's around early 50s. If I'm wrong, please correct me. But in the 70s, the first auditing, external auditing was done, where they start looking at the assets and who owns the deposits. By the 70s, I mean, within 1 decade and a half, in 15 years already, 80% of all the bank deposits belong to 1,500 companies owned by 28 families. 28 families, this is much less than the 1%, own 80% of the bank deposits. This is awesome. In 15 years. This is how quickly it happens. Why? Because you have to understand the impact of these figures. You have to truly understand. Money supply as a generic concept represents how much money enters into the economy every year. Okay? In the eyes of the majority of the people, who obviously don't want to think about it too much, they just take wholesale the idea. It's uncomfortable, the opposite idea, extremely uncomfortable. They think it's the government who's issuing the money. The majority of the people, for the most immediate experience that you have money, is the bill that you have in your pocket that says Bank Negara. So it follows, if you don't do any thinking at all. that the money is created by the government. But we know. We know. I mean, now we have vocabulary to interpret it. Money supply 1, money supply 2, money supply 3. That the majority of the money in circulation is not money supply 1. Money supply 1 is the bills and the coins. The representation is, the proportion is 1 to 20 in average. It could go to 1 to 50. 1 to 20. The expansion of money created by the banks is 20 times faster than the created by the state. 20 times faster. In 15 years, I can confiscate all your money and put everything in my name. 15 years, it doesn't take me longer than that. The rest of the time, I have to make sure that you don't die of starvation. But I could completely wipe you out. Because the accumulation of money that you can create on credit is phenomenally bigger than the amount of money that you can create throughout the economy. I can generate money out of, boom, thin air. I mean, it's too bad to believe it. Honestly, it's insulting. You cannot say to yourself, can I have been such an idiot? Do you mean I have lived like a complete thug inside a society I cannot understand? It's too much, eh? Again, the temptation is to say, no, this cannot possibly be. I'm not that idiot. There must be some other explanation. Well, do the maths for yourself. But if this is something slightly abstract to you, let me give you something a little bit more reasonable to understand. That it is much easier to comprehend simply because it refers to somebody else. You are not the idiot, it's somebody else. Barack Obama. He came into power by the influence, clearly, of the Wall Street. He hired Wall Street to create his government. He bailed out all the banks, people later, first the banks. And he has created, conservatively speaking, in the region of 23 trillion US dollars out of thin air. Boom. Have entered into the economy. What does it mean? Well, to the Malaysians, obviously nothing. Nobody has even opened their mouth on the subject. The Chinese, on the other hand, they said, this is crazy. It has taken us 25 years of hard work to accumulate 1 trillion US dollar in reserves. We had to sell you so many toys and plastic stuff, to get $1 trillion, and then you press one button and you get 23? They said, this is not fair. But what do the Americans, how do you answer to somebody that you have just cheated and say, it's not fair? You think, is that some dumb idiot? He still doesn't get it? Do you think I'm playing fair here? Are they still that idiots that they think we are working in a player game here? Don't you understand I'm the boss? When the Chinese saw the indifference to which the West was treating their rightly argument, they suddenly woke up. And they say, hang on a minute. But look what they can do, whatever. I mean, what is the point? I mean, we can never win. Okay, I mean, how many toys do I have to now sell and for how many years to get 25 trillion? While still, they have the magic button and they can print more money. So they start thinking, all of a sudden there is a rush and say, why don't we make the yuan the next currency? And the response of the Europeans, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? This is not for you. This is only for us. We may have troubles, but we will solve it. The refusal to enter into that kind of moral debate. Russia followed tracks. And there are more intellectuals now in Russia saying gold and silver. Let's go to gold and silver. Just listen to Russian TV. If you want to have any critical understanding of Wall Street, not Fox News, of course. Just go and listen to them. There's 1, 2, 3 programs continuously speaking about paper money is a joke. You will not find it in TV Tika or TV Dua or TV Satu or the Islamic channels. They will not discuss this matter. You are not allowed to think about it. Do you understand the magnitude of the matter that we are bringing forward? So, Saudi Arabia didn't issue a complaint. Pakistan didn't issue a complaint on the matter. China did, Russia did. They said something needs to be done, and that they are rushing into strategies, none of which is correct. But it is an attempt of doing something. For example, let's move out of the IMF slowly, creating an alternative, BRICS, the whole idea of BRICS. Let's try to do something different. Let's see how we go from here. They still don't have an idea what comes after, but they have mentioned, even succinctly, but they have already pointed out that we are going to do exchange to manage our commercial balances in gold. Now that's a big thing. That's revolutionary. When we've all been here for 100 years, including from Marx, that gold is the relic. It's a relic of the old days. We don't need that. Just forget about it. It's medieval and it's disgusting. They don't refer as gold as freedom, of course. Freedom is, what do you mean freedom? Are you kidding me? Freedom? What is freedom? What is that thing? So there are some people trying to do something. Even in the United States, there is a voice now that says, end the Fed. This is the title of a book by Ron Paul, a Republican senator from Texas, who is growing popularity. As they say in Fox News repeatedly as a joke, you have the same chances of becoming a president like Ron Paul. Have a chance to become president of the United States. They will not allow him, of course. But it doesn't mean that the people are not listening to him. Not everybody. Those who feed the information, the cerebral cortex is just television from CNN and Fox News. Of course, you don't understand anything. But you don't want to anyway. So it's kind of zombie, being fed zombie stuff. But for those who think and they want to think, they are finding an increasing number of people who are saying, not on. And we are fighting back. These are people from the United States, remember. In other words, they don't know anything about riba, they don't know anything about paper money. They are just simply saying the Federal Reserve Bank is criminal. Criminal. It's a criminal organization. Now, how many ulama have you heard in the last 10 years saying Bank Negara is a criminal and it has to go? How many? Okay, well, no, nobody. I mean, even when you hear me saying Bank Negara is haram, doesn't it kind of give you a little bit chilly thing in the kind of feeling like this? It's a little bit, right? At least a little bit, I'm sure. Because it's something that is blasphemous. It's like it's heretic. You can't say these things. It cannot possibly be. The implication is that, do you mean the entire population of Malaysia haven't got it? It's too much. You mean all my ulama don't have a clue about this thing? It's too much. It's too much. Well, listen to the Americans, if that makes you feel better. It's the Masale. I'm a Masale too, but I'm different. Istri saya datang dari Muamalat. But listen to Ron Paul, for example. I mean, it makes you feel more comfortable. And listen to what he has to say about the Federal Reserve Bank. Because the Federal Reserve Bank and the Bank Negara is like brother and sister. Okay? The model comes from there, it doesn't come from us. They brought it to us, they stuck it into our throats, and we are living with it. The policies of Bank Negara are responsible why you don't have the gold dinar. Mahathir wanted the gold dinar. Bank Negara didn't. What I cannot understand is why Mahathir could not see that. Why he allowed these technocrats to run the show. When I saw from day one that all they wanted to do is to take the project, the good initiative of Mahathir, and kill it. And kill it. And that's exactly what they did. They took the proposal that Mahathir had initiated and kill it. So when he resigned, I'm sure that they say, oof, that was over. The consequent prime ministers that came afterwards, not a clue. We tried to speak with Badawi on the matter, but weak. And consequently over nothing, you can expect. Mahathir was exceptional in that way. You know, he had the guts. But Bank Negara showed that they know how to handle the business. And that's why you don't have gold in our hair. Now, central banks are evil. All right? And what you cannot say is that they are all evil except the one of my country. Or you cannot say all the paper money in the world is haram except the ringgit. That doesn't make sense. You see, there is something completely illogical there. Why the government doesn't want to get rid of the ringgit? Because it's fantastic. It's fantastic. It's unlimited power. They can do whatever they like. They can tax everybody at their will. And there is a banking industry behind it that it will support any government that it keeps endorsing the status quo. They are far more powerful in terms of wealth than the entire population of Malaysia by several factors. Okay? This has happened in Malaysia, this has happened in Indonesia, this has happened everywhere. Indonesia, particularly so. Particularly so. 5 corporations, I've been told, own 80% of the stock exchange. How much of the money only God knows. The accumulation of capital is endless. Once you start, you have the capacity to borrow. There's no end. Look, I mean, if you want to understand my words in a graphic way, if you want to represent it graphically, imagine a vacuum cleaner. No? And it goes, it collects all the dust from the room, and it kind of brings it back, and there is like a fountain that kind of brings it forward, right? Well, imagine you collect, you bring it forward and multiply. Okay? You start accumulating dust at that money, in this case, at the center, at a rate that is unbelievable. You can turn the balance of the wealth in no time. You can make people billionaires in 10 years. I mean, I love Said Mukhtar, but nobody can tell me that you become a triple billionaire, God knows how much money he's got, in 2 decades, legally. And he's the good guy. Nobody in this country has given more money and charity than him. He's the good guy. Like Bill Clinton now is also throwing money everywhere. How about the Chinese who have, before the Muslims started to emerging, the Malays trying to emerge into this world of very, very, very wealthy, the richest country in Malaysia still remains Chinese. And we are told continuously that the Chinese own 80% of the economy. I don't know where the statistics come from, but it seems to be consistent when I hear from here, from there. The complaint is naturally nationalistic. In other words, the Malays are saying, hey, this is my country. And how is it possible that I'm a secondary citizen here? I'm traveling through the country, I go to Moa and small towns here and there, and you find that in the center of the town, the shop is whatever it says in Chinese, but Chinese characters. You go, I said, you mean all this thing is Chinese? He said, yeah, it's all Chinese. And where are the Malays? In the kampung. So, I mean, you've seen that throughout consistently in Malaysia. And the same thing in Indonesia, by the way, where the population of Chinese is 3-4%. What's wrong? Well, the Malays, they never liked to embrace capitalism. Like Tuan Guru, they said, no, I don't want to borrow. I don't want to be like them. It's wonderful. I don't care. You are just down there. The money goes boom into this spiral up there. You don't understand the game you are playing. You have been outplayed left, right, and center. Your prudism, your lack of enterprising, your lack of trying to get the loan is what is bringing you down. For the moment you have the ringgit in the pocket, you are done. They don't need you any further. It's different if you start saying, and use the gold dinar, the ringgit, back to them. That days will be different. That at that point you have stopped. Okay, but in the meanwhile, they don't mind. And in a certain way, if you want to find a justification for Islamic banking, it's because the Malays will not open bank accounts. So with Islamic banking, at least you are back into the system. Not that you are the borrowers, you are just the contributors. It's the Tuan Guru mentality, which is not a bad mentality. It's not a bad impulse. It doesn't come from greed. It comes from trying to be good, but without understanding that it has put you in the situation you found yourself in. Because the Chinese didn't have this problem. They love exposure. I mean, they love gambling. I've never understood gambling, but they love it. Riba is not an issue. They can borrow into this thing in a way that it will make you feel the risk that they are taking is unthinkable. They will go into this thing. They went historically before you. The first banks were created by them. Then the rest thing is who do you lend it to? That's all. The money just flowed mathematically. Then the second, the argumentation then is psychological then, and people say, you know, the Chinese are more clever than the Malays. But that cannot possibly explain what is happening. You have a very clear mathematical, mechanical process behind taking place. Another example is with the Jews in Germany, and how quickly the things turn upside down. From a society of ghetto-oriented Jews that lived in Germany marginally, and in the turn of the 19th century, and this will sound like anti-Semitic, but the quote, my source is the history of Zionism written by a Jew. Okay, so I mean, he is anti-Semitic. I'm just repeating what I read. Fantastic, interesting book, The History of Zionism. And, you know, he's presenting like they're like, look, I mean, how amazing. We were in the ghetto, and suddenly within the span of 20, 30 years, we own 80% of all the banks in Frankfurt. From then on, we start owning book production, publishing, entertainment. They focus on activities, social activities, and they have particular keen in education. And one of the things you notice, remarkably, is that the number of Jewish students that they go into university level is 6 times larger than the average German number of people. They have the money. Consequently, they are more clever than us, than the Germans. That was the story. No. They are more clever, but not in that way. They've been more clever than you. Because, you know, what is happening here? It's like trying to play football with the rules of basketball. It doesn't work. Neither it works to play basketball with the rules of football. If you are in capitalism, play with the rules of capitalism. But you cannot apply the rules of Islam to capitalism. It just doesn't work. The idea that, as if it's presented to us nowadays, of Islamization, it is of the nature of the 50-50 thinking. What I call the elasticity of the halal. So the suggestion here being that, well, it's haram but not too haram. Or is almost halal. You know, or either it's kind of, you can make it so elastic that you can just cover every corner that you want. Like, for example, Islamic Dow Jones. You know? And the principle of Islamic Dow Jones is all the companies that you will be buying shares to, they all practice riba. So if you are a shareholder of a company that does riba, you are doing riba, right? Simple. So there's no one single company in the Dow Jones that doesn't borrow money. Therefore, buying a stock in there, apart from what is the stock, which is another question, but buying a stock means you are participating, therefore it's haram. You cannot get that. So somebody, somewhere, sitting down in some place, comes and he says, well, if the borrowing of the company doesn't exceed 30% of the capital of the company, then it's not too haram. I always wonder who that person was that thought 30. Why not 29.5? Why it wasn't, 17.22? Why 30? But in fact, why 0.1? When 0.00001 is haram already. But a second Sharia council somewhere did stamp halal, and there you are. No further questioning. Islamic Dow Jones. Only 2 days ago, I was reading one paper where somebody was asking, if I work in a company as an accountant that it is participating in riba, then what is my situation? And in part of the carry on, I said, and they said, well, you can work in any company that pays. This is not investing. Now you are working in a company that practices riba. And they said, if the company is not indebted more than 51% of the total value of the company, is halal. But if it is more than 51%, that is haram. Again, I am puzzled. Who comes up with these figures? Under what circumstances then, I am participating in a company that is doing riba? I shouldn't be with them. I shouldn't be eating money from these people, the source of which is haram. Who makes these rules? Well, it's the elasticity of halal. You just keep matching things up. So the result of this is a complete Islamization of the entire banking system from beginning to end. Okay? And that explains why we cannot think. We want to think, but we cannot think. And even our good morality, not our bad morality, it's not the bad guy. The bad guy will be saying, oh, join the bank, get the money, and that's it, finished. It's the good guy that is the biggest problem. It's the Tuanguro mentality that is killing us. It's trying to be good into a system that is bad. You follow? We don't gain. I mean, the irony is that when people come to me and they say, what do I do with a mortgage? And I say, go find out which one is the cheapest and get it. I say, but that's wrong, yes. But you ask me, what do I do with a mortgage? If you want to know what you do with your life, then I have a complete different set of rules for you. Then you have to build up Jama, currency, Muamalat, etc., etc. Lead the people into freedom. We have all the tools, as we will see later. It's all in our hands. We are not inferior, we are not weaker, we are stronger. They are weak. They are a fantasy. They are playing, the whole thing is sustaining fantasy. When the whole thing falls, it will fall so fast that you will be saying, I can't believe we were living in those days. I can't believe that we will allow this thing to happen. And you will find very hard to try to explain to your grandson why you were accepting green pieces of paper and give them everything. Because your grandson will say, no, you couldn't be that dumb. And you will have to say, no, you don't understand, my grandson. It was difficult in those days. And your son will still looking at you and say, no, possible. It cannot possibly be. You look so much more clever, Mom. How long do we have? Past the time? 15. Well, here, let's bring back the argument again. We are facing a different type of riba than before. Okay, this is a riba in steroids. This is a different type of riba. Riba is no longer a contract, as in two people involved. Now involves third parties, whether they like it or not. It's a system. Once paper money once riba is now used, is issuing credit at the same time, is a system. You cannot understand riba in terms of a classical definition of two people. I lend you and you borrow. It's a system. There are people involved that they don't even heard about that contract. You have to think about like a system. And when you want to tackle this, you have to understand it as a system, whereby you have to conclude that paper money and riba is the same thing. You want to eliminate riba, you have to eliminate paper money and central banks and all the banks altogether. It has to go as a system. Don't come and tell me I can elastically make this thing halal. No, I want to go 2 levels down into understanding that this doesn't work. And we have to be strong on the matter, we have to be resilient on the matter, and we have to keep saying it. You have to keep saying it. For it's only when they see that we are resilient on the matter that they will start cracking down. They have nothing to hold the thing in the matter. They can ignore you. They can try to ignore you, like they have ignored me. But there are more people. Every day we're a little bit more. There are more people here, there are more people there. There are people now in Pakistan, they are here, there. They are growing. And some people, they come and they say, I didn't hear it from you, I heard it from Ron Paul. Okay, fine, join in, it doesn't matter. And now, what this is the Islamic position. For Ron Paul doesn't have all the answers. What happens with the Christians is that you follow the argument, and you can see, they know something is wrong, but they cannot tell you, they cannot articulate what is right. This is the unique benefit of having with us Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This is the treasure of Islam. This is a great, great, great thing. But only if we teach the people what Islam is. Stop throwing the Sharia to people, making the Chinese run away from you. Every time you tell them, look, you are ignorant. No, it's the invitation to the Chinese who had a culture, who had Islam, remember. It's to say, come to us. To become Muslim is not to become Malay. All right? Don't throw that into their head. Allow them to have their own muftis. Allow them to have a dinar written in Chinese characters. Allow to have their own judges, their own ulama who speak Cantonese. Don't even for a second imagine that you can bring them down and thump them down into your culture, because that's not what Islam is. And honestly, Malay culture in the 21st century, I don't want to hear about it. There's nothing good in it. What do you have to offer? Bank Negara? Islamic banks? If you look at us, we joined the Islamic Bank and that's it. Or the hudud. Oh no, this hudud is insidious. You know? To put the whole matter into this thing while you ignore the bigger ones. I'm telling you, the Chinese in your country will enter into Islam if you start bombarding them with all this puritanical nonsense, especially what is directed to women. It's not. Put the priorities right. The Europeans, I'm a European. I'm telling you, the Europeans will enter into Islam. I'm the evidence of it. If you present an Islam that makes sense, that speaks about the things that they are going on, that is not secluded behind something we intellectually understand as evil. Before I was a Muslim, I knew capitalism is crap. When I hear the Muslims defending capitalism, I say, what is wrong with them? And at first, I thought it's this, third world syndrome of, I want to be the inferiority complex. Then I realized the whole thing is more sinister, much, much worse than that. Do you realize we are becoming the ardent defenders of a system that is dying? By saying Islamic banking, we are stamping as if Allah Himself has blessed this institution. Do you understand how ridiculous it sounds? That we go on to defending the Central Bank of Malaysia in ways that are absurd. It's like hearing some people in Pakistan defending democracy. I mean, I tell you, the people in the West will feel shy of listening to such absurdities. They're speaking like it's revealed by God religion. When in fact, I'm telling you the Europeans will go back to fascism in no time. It is the second nature. It's just scratch a little bit and you find they are rolling in the streets. And as we will see, when this crisis comes back, we will see a new Hitler, a new Mussolini coming back. For sure. Democracy is an accident. That it has been clearly in order to allow this humanistic agenda. That means riba is halal. That's all they want. Everything else is just nonsense. All the debate about homosexuality and this and the other, homosexuality is not the West. And it is such an absurd idea that I'm telling you, if to prove it wrong, all you have to allow them is to continue, exercise it for one generation. Because it is self-canceling. They are all homosexuals, that's it. You don't have to be worried about it anymore. There's no second generation. It's gone. It's anti-natura. That is not their strength or weakness. That's not the argument. You don't have to go and say, you homosexuals, forget about it. Honestly. I mean, I've been asked 1,000 times, what do you think about homosexuality? I tell them, well, it's fantastic for you. We need 4 wives, so we're happy. Make a joke about it. Don't entertain the whole. It's just absurd, ridiculous, nonsensical. Speak to them about riba. Bring the matter of inflation, unemployment, crisis as it's coming forward, and then you will see, and this is the answer. The only problem with this is that the problem I had is that I cannot go to my own people, which I would love to do dawah to them, and say, but look, Islam is nothing of the things that you say. Look, Islam is anti-riba, is anti-banks, is the end of all this, because Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam offered this model. Because they look at me and they say, well, in which country are you putting this thing in action? Where, Saudi Arabia? Morocco? And I have to shy, I have to look down and I say, well, no, we are still working it out. Then they, quite rightly, they tell me, why don't you fix your things at home and then you come and tell me? Which is why I'm in Pakistan at the moment. And I live in Malaysia. Not because I don't want to do dawah to my people, but I can't. I have to work with my people first, like my Shaykh told me in the very early days. It's the people that you pray. These are your brothers. You have to work it out with them. If they don't understand, continue until they learn. I would have had much better, not better in any conceivable way, but more successful, in inverted commas, career in the West discussing these matters. I've been 1,000 times invited to explain the guilds. They're fascinated with the idea. They cannot understand it. Or paper money or this or the other. When it comes to articulation of solutions, I had a much better audience than I have here today. But you are my brothers. I don't care. When they come and they say, how do you create a guild? I tell them, look, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasul. Tell me that. Say that to me, and then I will help you. In the meanwhile, lakum dinakum waliyadin. It's with us that we have to work. And it's with Malaysia that we have to work. It's with our muftis that we have to work. It's with this government that we have to work. Without judgment. We have to do all these things without going and telling you, idiot, ignorant. We have to do it in a manner that says, come and join us, with a spirit of victory, which is how I want to articulate this last part of the talk. How we can transform all these things, instead of something that it suggests, we are bringing something, taking something away, into something that it presents itself as an opportunity. How can we use this thing, not in order to reprimand, but in order to succeed? How the message should be focused on victory. How the message should be focused in success. How all these things is bringing good news to the people, not bad news. Not yet another thing that I am doing wrong. Rather than focusing on what is wrong, focusing on what is right. What opportunities are we missing? How can we lead the world? And keeping the judgment for ourselves. Always. If you want to succeed in this world. Instead of saying haram, 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 like the Wahhabis, say haram, haram, haram to yourself. And leave the people. And inspire the people. And lead the people. And offer light instead of judgment. Move forward. Take the first bullet. When the people say, like they told me in Kelantan when I started, we are going to be in jail. And I said to that MP in particular, I said, don't worry, I will go to jail. I would say all of you didn't know anything about it. I misled you in minting the gold dinar. And they say, okay, that's fine then. Do it. It doesn't matter. They are scared. You shouldn't be scared. You have to take the first step. For this contagious. Taqwa is contagious. It doesn't transmit by reason. It transmits by company. When you see somebody who loves Allah, you say, I want that. When the same thing, when you find some act of nobility, you say, I want that. I want that from me. In gathering together, in coming together, in bringing this matter forward. Every time we speak, we are bringing the matter forward with the light. When the light comes, the darkness disappears. This is like swimming in the direction of the current of the river. Every stroke you advance 10 times. For the river to come into place, they have to go upstream. They have to make an enormous effort to reach where we are. But to put the things right, it goes fast. It goes fast. When the light comes, the whole thing moves very quickly. To go down, it takes a lot of time. So when some people said it took 300 years for capitalism to grow to where they are today, it will take another 300 years to put it right. No, it will take 2 days to put it right. Like Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam took a society that was collapsing, and in his time, Allah said 23 years, that's enough. He could have stayed a little bit more. I wish he was still here with us. But I said, 20, that's enough. And if you count all the time he was in Medina, it's practically nothing. And he changed the world forever. Because when the light comes, the darkness disappears. Because we have a much more powerful inside us than in our hands. Because the truth travels at a speed we cannot understand. Because when today, here, we are here in Kuala Lumpur, in the middle of the jungle, in a wonderful air-conditioning room, I must say, but we are in this remote part of the world, remote to the rest of the world, naturally. We are at home here. But somebody in Argentina who is not hearing us is going to feel inspired. You know this theory that when a scientific discovery is made in one place simultaneously, in 2 or 3 places appears. So when you say Allahu Akbar, when we say riba is haram, when we say paper money, when we unveil these matters, when we say it, it affects people in a manner that they are not sitting down here. But they understand. It's like you have revealed, you have opened the thing to the whole world. In a matter we cannot understand. We don't see the connection. But in the unseen, in the meaning, it's all connected. By the heart, we are connected. With Allah, we are all by Him. We are all part of the same. By means we cannot understand, the thing is spreading. And somebody somewhere in Malaysia who is not hearing us directly is going to say, hang on. He's going to find the courage. Somebody in the East, in the West, somebody in Europe will be born today into this thing. I understand these things. I'm ready to understand it. I'm ready to act. This is because Allah is in charge. Not the bankers. Don't fear the bankers, for God's sake, don't fear the bankers. Don't fear the central bank, for God's sake. Feel pity of them. They have no authority to talk to us. They cannot reach the bottom of our foot, for they are themselves in the biggest trouble that you can think of, one by one, each individual. I wouldn't wish to work in that institution to my worst enemy. They have no authority. So when they say that the gold dinar is good or bad, I don't care what you say. We have authority to tell you. You don't have authority to tell us. But only if you have the heart, if you understand who is your master, then you can talk to them and you can tell them, just move away quietly. Just get out of the way. If you don't understand what's coming, let out of the way. We are trying to save the Malay people. Give gold coins at a time where the dollar, your dollar, is going to collapse. We're trying to save the people, to create a different type of economy, where we're not dependent on big corporations. We are autonomous by the method and the model that Rasulullah so successfully brought to us. That will not come because you are more clever. That will come because your heart is strong. then you will be able to speak with them. Face them instead of hiding from them. You're not doing anything wrong, they are doing something wrong. You have the moral hand, they don't have it. But where does the strength come from? You have it here. I know the Malays have braveness in themselves. But they have taken the guts out of you. Remember the days that you were chasing, the days of the pirates. They are not the bad days, they are the heroic days. The Zulu who never gave up. The Achenese who never gave up. We don't give up. And then, only then, we can become the inspiration to the whole world, which is our task, to free the world. Not just us, to free the world. Embrace our brothers, the Chinese. Bring them into the team. They will join us. As the Europeans they will join us. If we are the people leading the way out of this monstrosity called capitalism. There is no la hawla wa la quwwata illa United States, no la hawla wa la quwwata illa banks, not la hawla wa la quwwata illa Bank Negara, no illa hawla wa la quwwata illa dollar. There is only la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.